This is Tyler McCoy. We're continuing our explanation of implementing transitional fire attack Dayton Fire Department. We're going to continue the video by ISFSI explaining implementing this tactic.
Once the fire has been cooled, it is vital that firefighting crews make entry into the building to fully extinguish the fire. Failure to make a timely attack at the seat of the fire can result in dangerous fire growth. Crews must be conditioned to move quickly to assure the fire is extinguished.
One thing that we learned in developing the slicers concept is we were very good at advancing hose lines. We lacked a little efficiency in removing hose lines or backing them and carrying them in a different direction. Therefore, on the drill ground, we drop the initial hose line. The pump operator has a backup line set for us to enter and continue our firefighting efforts.
During the extinguishment phase, crews enter the building and resume what can be considered as traditional tactical operations. The fire must be completely extinguished and the building overhauled to assure no rekindles. Additionally, primary and secondary searches should be conducted as normal to ensure no one is in the building. This completes the sequential process of the slicers concept and leads us to the actions of opportunity, rescue and salvage. Sequential process of the slicers concept and leads us to the actions of opportunity, rescue and salvage. These may occur at any point during the incident, depending on the situation. Rescue remains the highest priority of the fire department when operating at a structure fire. The information gained during size-up dictates where rescue falls into the incident priorities.
When we arrive on the scene and have confirmed entrapment, we will obviously make rescue our highest priority. However, when we arrive in a residential setting and we're met by the occupants who can confirm that their entire family and their pets are accounted for, we move rescue to a lower priority. This gives us the ability, as we always would, to conduct our primary and secondary search, but only after the thermal threat has been reduced.
The challenge for departments operating with limited staffing is when 3 firefighters arrive with active fire and a known rescue situation. In a perfect world, the department would have the staffing to allow for simultaneous tactics, initiating a search and rescue effort while reducing or removing the thermal threat at the same time. But with limited staffing, the company officer is forced to make uncomfortable choices. Which tactic is the priority? To protect the occupants, removing them from the structure, or knocking down the fire threat to remove the hazard?
With limited staffing, we've learned to adjust. We have the pump operator do what he can to reduce the thermal threat, while the officer and the firefighter work to remove trapped occupants based on a vent enter isolate search technique.
The fire service has become familiar with the concept of vent enter search. Given the lessons learned through the fire dynamics research, we've learned the importance of using a closed door to prohibit flow paths and controlling fire growth. To reinforce that lesson, isolate has been added to the vent enter search concept to create the VEIS method. It is important to train firefighters to close the door when searching a room to ensure a flow path is not created during the search process.
We take the information gathered throughout our scene size-up and from occupants at the fire to determine the most likely location where occupants may be trapped. We then rapidly enter that space, close the door in an effort to control the fire flow path.
During a VEIS operation, isolating that flow path is extremely important because the moment that door gets controlled, it will immediately improve conditions in the room where you're searching and going to potentially find a victim.
Another place where door control is extremely important is in the case of vent, enter, isolate, and search. You don't want to change the ventilation condition until you're ready to make entry to the room. So the idea of taking the ladder and breaking the window before you climb up to the top of the ladder is not a good idea. You want to foot the ladder, get it to the sill, go up, decide if you still want to make entry to the room, look at conditions in the room, take that window, and then immediately go to get the door closed if the door's not closed already. Otherwise, you're putting yourself and the victim in that exhaust portion of the flow path, and tenable conditions are going to deteriorate very rapidly in terms of toxic gases and increased heat levels in that room. And so it's very critical that when you make that entry, you use that door to cut off the flow path. And you can cut off the flow path with the door at either an inlet or an outlet. Either end, you can stop it up.
salvage rounds out the slicers method, with firefighters using everything from compartmentalization to salvage covers to protect property to the greatest extent possible. Remember to close doors as you move through the structure to limit smoke and water damage. Many ask, where does the previous Recio versus method developed by Lloyd Lehman fit? Where does the previous Recio versus method developed by Lloyd Lehman fit with the slicers method?
We found that Recio VS still makes a lot of sense from a command perspective. As the first arriving battalion chief, it's critical that I use Recio VS to recall the incident priorities in an effort to ensure that rescue is made, exposures are managed, and extinguishment takes place. So slicers is being used by our initial arriving company officers, and Recio VS can still be used by our commanding officers for overall priorities.
So to review, the slice section is designed to occur in order and is typically carried out by the first arriving engine company. The R&S for rescue and salvage may occur at any time depending on the needs of the incident. As the formal incident command post is established, the Recio versus concept still applies, guiding the overall strategies of the incident. The slicers method is an example of how one department incorporated the lessons from the fire dynamic research into their tactics to improve firefighter safety. The challenge for fire departments around the world is to incorporate these lessons in a way that works for them at the local level.
Okay, so how are we going to implement this transitional attack at the Dayton Fire Department? The DFD should implement the transitional attack using the slicers acronym for first arriving fire companies to a structure fire. This will increase the safety of firefighters and the citizens of Dayton. To properly implement this system, several items must occur. The first item is to change our tactics manual. The tactics manual will need to be amended with the current section stating crews will attack the fire from the unburned side and replaced with wording that states first arriving fire companies will implement a transitional fire attack using the slicers acronym should it be an interior offensive attack. Next, we will do an online training course for all Dayton firefighters. We currently use the Center Learn program for our continuing education. Training will be developed over modern fire behavior, transitional fire attack, and implementing the slicers concept at the Dayton Fire Department. All firefighters and officers will then take a quiz at the end of the training to make sure that they are competent in the subject matter. The last step will be hands-on training at the training center. What we do is a hands-on career. We need to actually apply this theory to practice. This will be a two-part training all day at the training center. The first part will be conducted in our training classroom where we will review slicers videos, watch the scientific evidence videos produced by NIST, UL, and ISFSI on how this research was developed and why it works. We will then take part in hands-on live burn evolutions on the training grounds, implementing and practicing the slicers and other aspects of the transitional fire attack until crews become competent in this attack method. I was a lieutenant on Engine 4 this summer. We were first due in the middle of the night to a flower shop fire. We found fire inside the front of the building. I could see it through the glass window and also through my thermal imaging camera. Our tactics would state to take the hose line to the back of the building, force entry, and attack the fire in the front with working our hose line through the building. I asked the district chief, who had arrived right before I did, if I could implement this transitional attack and attack it from the front. He said if I believe I could attack safely and efficiently, let me, and here's the results of the fire. The man who called 911 took a live video of us arriving on Engine 4, and here's the results. Okay, as we can see, I made a 360-degree size up. I located the fire at the front of the building. I knew where it was going to go. I forced entry through the glass window. I broke the glass. You can hear it breaking. This created a flow path. I knew this was going to happen. As you can see, the fire took off immediately. It intensified. As soon as I did that, though, I had a charged hand line, and my rookie firefighter immediately placed water onto the ceiling of the building. We flowed a straight stream at the ceiling. We darkened down the fire. We actually extinguished the bulk of it. As you can see, it all turned to steam. That steam was able to escape through the front window. The ladder crew arrived on scene. We forced entry through the front door, and we took our line inside and made a final extinguishment. This was a textbook transitional fire attack that went flawless. We were able to cool the fire from the outside and make final extinguishment inside. It worked really well. Had we forced entry to the back of the building and taken our hose line through there, the time it took to get water on the fire would have taken a lot longer, and that fire would have been a lot more intensified and done a lot more damage to the fire. So as we can see, evidence-based, it works even in Dayton, Ohio. The age of the thinking firefighter. A lot of old school firefighters will say, hey, look, that's an awful lot like progress. You know, the fire service is 150 years of tradition unimpeded by progress has always been the thought. Science, flow path, that's witchcraft, as some old guys may see. Another guy would say, the last thing we need in the fire service is a thinking firefighter. While this young firefighter says, you fellas do know this in the 21st century, right? That, if done properly, putting water on the fire from the exterior does not push fire. We must coordinate ventilation to control flow paths, and we must implement the slicers concept. Our fires today are different than they used to be when these old timers were on the job. They're hotter, they're growing faster. We must do something different, implement this transitional fire attack to keep firefighters from getting injured and killed on the job and saving civilians. I would like to thank ISFSI, International Society of Fire Instructors, for putting on this great training video. I obtained a video of our First Do Fire and Engine 4 from WHIO TV and from the website Modern Fire Behaviors, where I obtained a lot of the information for my paper and for this PowerPoint. I would like to thank you for watching this video and learning about implementing a transitional fire attack at the Dayton Fire Department.